On June 11th, 2001, police received a call reporting a case of child abuse against an 8-year-old girl named Lauren. Cops arrived at the home and were led to the master bedroom's closet. As they stepped onto the urine-soaked carpet, they saw a small child who had the appearance of a 2-year-old, despite her actual age of 8. The emaciated girl weighed only 25 pounds and was covered in scars, feces, and bugs. Investigators would come to find out that Lauren had been trapped in the closet for 6 years by her own parents, being tortured and assaulted all throughout. The abuse she underwent is truly horrid, but the way she fell into the hands of these monsters is bizarre in itself. Lauren was born to Barbara Calhoun on April 12, 1993. However, Barbara didn't know who the father was and planned to give Lauren up for adoption. Barbara had met Sabrina and Bill Kavanaugh, who were elated to adopt Lauren. Barbara expressed no interest in keeping the girl, even declining to hold her after the birth. For the next 8 months, Sabrina and Bill raised Lauren as their own, giving her a fulfilled and loving life. However, paperwork to revoke Barbara's parental rights had never been filed, and in the meantime, she had married a man named Kenneth Atkinson. The newlyweds decided they wanted Lauren back, and seeing as how Barbara still had parental rights, it was not hard to get a hold of her. The Kavanaughs were very against this, but unable to go against the law. Lauren was gradually switched to the care of Kenneth and Barbara, but as the visits were still ongoing, Bill and Sabrina began noticing signs of abuse. They took Lauren to the hospital to have her checked out, but doctors refused to perform a rape kit on the baby. They showed doctors dozens of photos they had taken of her wounds and bruises, but they were ultimately turned away. Barbara and Kenneth gained permanent custody of Lauren in 1995 when she was 1 year old. She briefly lived a semi-normal life with her biological mother and stepfather, but it didn't last long. She had an older half-sister named Blake, and from an outside point of view, they were just a normal family. But by the time Lauren was 2, the neglect and abuse began once again. It started when Barbara would sleep on the floor with Lauren, but the young child would wander off and get into things in other rooms. To prevent this, Barbara started putting Lauren in the closet, with a gate up in the doorframe. Soon after, Lauren would start pushing the gate down and escaping. Barbara, in turn, decided to close the door entirely, trapping Lauren in the dark 4-by-8-foot room. It was in this room that she would stay for the next 6 years of her life, only taken out to be subjected to agonizing sexual and physical abuse. Her mother kept her out of sight and out of mind, locking her away in the closet with a chair propped up against the door so that Lauren couldn't escape. She would sit on the floor, staring at the crack of light under the door, surrounded by the stench of her own waste. She would occasionally be brought food by her mother, who would often force her to chew it but spit it out before swallowing. Her older sister Blake would also sometimes sneak her food, and occasionally take her out for baths. She saw Lauren's battered and bruised body, but said nothing about it in fear of being subjected to the same abuse. When Lauren was given baths by Barbara and Kenneth, they would drown her for fun, watching her gasp for air as they held her face under running water. Lauren was truly never safe for years on end. She was subjected to other horrors, sometimes being thrown down into the crawlspace through a hole in the floor, or rented out to other pedophiles. One in particular, known as the Candy Man, would dress up as a clown as he assaulted her, giving Lauren a petrifying fear of clowns and Halloween for the rest of her life. Barbara would have 4 more children after Lauren, but none of her siblings were ever subjected to the same level of abuse as her. Finally, after 6 years of torture, Lauren's abuse would come to an end. Kenneth had told a neighbor named Jeannie Rivers about Lauren and showed her the closet. It's unknown exactly what his motive was for doing this, but it's suspected that he did it as revenge against Barbara for cheating on him. As Jeannie saw the naked, battered, and skeletal body of Lauren, she called the police on June 11th, 2001. Jeannie reflected on the discovery, saying, "What I saw was a monster, a teeny little creature. She was weak and devoid of color. Her arms looked to be less than an inch big to me." When police saw poor Lauren, they thought they had found the wrong child, seeing as how she weighed only 25 pounds. Even Lauren herself thought she was only 2 years old, as she had had only 2 birthday parties in her life. She was covered in dozens of cigarette burns, puncture wounds, and her hair was infested with bugs. As officers stepped into the closet to inspect her, urine seeped out of the carpet, soaking their feet. Bread bags filled with feces surrounded the girl, with more feces found smeared on the wall. She was taken to the hospital and revitalized. It was here that they discovered she weighed only 2 pounds more than she had at 18 months old. Her body was in horrible condition, with her legs being too weak to even stand on her own. Her genitals were so disfigured from the abuse that she had only one hole for both her vagina and anus. She had carpet fibers, feces, and plastic in her throat, making it hard to eat or breathe. Over the coming months, she would undergo several surgeries to help restore the injuries she had sustained. The hospital she was admitted to had never seen a case nearly as bad as this one. There was little hope for her recovery, as she had been completely neglected and unstimulated during her most formative years. Her brain had atrophied as a result of this. Barbara and Kenneth were swiftly arrested and sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole in 2031. Sabrina and Bill Kavanaugh regained custody of Lauren and gave their best attempt to help her recover. The following years were absurdly difficult, as Lauren was severely disadvantaged in comparison to her peers. She was unable to recite the ABCs, she didn't know how to sit in a chair or hold utensils. She had forgotten what grass and the sun felt like, and was scared of the outdoors. And she was fiercely protective of her food, terrified that it would be taken from her. Less than 2 years after legally adopting Lauren, Bill would die of a stroke, leaving the rest of Lauren's recovery up to Sabrina. The worst of Lauren's torture was over, but not all of it. She was raped once again by a 24-year-old man when she was just 12 years old. She struggled intensely with mental health, afflicted by depression, bipolar disorder, and dozens of suicide attempts. As often happens with victims of childhood sexual abuse, Lauren would go on to offend in the same crime. She abused a 14-year-old girl while she was in her 20s and was arrested in December 2018. Though due to her mental health issues, she was seen as unfit to stand trial and sent to a mental health institution. The ongoing story of Lauren Kavanaugh, the girl in the closet, is truly one out of nightmares, but there's hope that Lauren can succeed in life despite the horrible conditions she was put through by Barbara and Kenneth Atkinson.